Welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. In this video I'm reviewing the High Republic issue number 4. Stick around and find out if it's worth reading and if the High Republic comic book series is delivering the goods. Where should I start reading? What is canon versus legends? When does the story begin? The answers to these questions is right here on Star Wars Timeline. The High Republic is a new comic book series published by Marvel. It's written by Cavan with pencil work from Ario and Anindito and colors by Annalisa Leoni. The story takes place 232 years before Episode 4. For those of you who read Light of the Jedi, the novel, which is also part of the High Republic publishing campaign, the story in this comic series takes place immediately after. I highly recommend you read the first 3 issues before you get on with reading this one. Spoiler alert, if you guys don't want to know anything about the story, please skip forward to my impression and review section of this video, which I will timestamp. Before we get to the story, let's briefly summarize the previous issue. We left off with Keith Trennis deep in the tunnels of Sedri Minor, where she finally finds the captive village boy and her fellow Jedi Sarit, both taken captive by the sentient plant life forms known as the Drengir. She's joined by Master Ever Chris, but both are ambushed by now possessed Master Skier with more Drengir along with him. Now, let's talk about the story in issue number 4. This chapter opens up with a flashback scene from 6 years earlier, with Keith Trennis recalling the lesson she learned with her Master Skier. He was teaching her to jump over a cliff, encouraging her to visualize the landing in her mind, and reminding her to remain patient after he captures her, breaking her fall from an unsuccessful attempt. All this time, Trennis narrates from the first-person perspective what Master Skier means to her, a mentor and a father figure who is always there by her side. Now we're back to present, where we left off in the previous issue. The entire group is now captives of the Drengir deep in the tunnels of Sedri Minor planet, with Master Skier being fully possessed by the alien plant spores. His amputated arm, lost in earlier battle in the Light of the Jedi novel, is now fully regrown with vegetation. Avar Chris, the leader of the group, tries to appeal to his senses, and his former student Keith Trennis reminds him of their close bond. The Drengir speak through his captive mind and narrate their past, speaking of their ancient conquests and brush with the dark side sect, which seems awfully familiar to the Sith. Meanwhile, on the Starlight Beacon station, the husk of the hut they group discovered earlier turns out to be a trap and explodes with the alien plant life, attacking the medical staff there. Back in the tunnels, Skier struggles but finally takes over his mind and reveals it was his intention all along to get overpowered by the spores to learn their nature, demonstrating his great self-control. All the Jedi break free and jump on the offensive, dispatching this strange new foe and taking back the village boy. When the Jedi search party gets back to the village, they discover a commotion. The villagers are bickering among each other for getting the Jedi involved in their affairs, but shortly after, everyone is rudely interrupted by a new party who seems to extort and rule over this part of the world, the Hutt Cartel. Now let's talk about my impression of this book. I have already talked about the art in this series in my review of the original first book, so I won't talk at length about it here, but let me just give you a quick cliff notes. I stated before that I absolutely love the pencil line work in this comic book series. It's very detailed with great attention to backgrounds and character costumes and so forth. I also mentioned that the characters look very consistent from panel to panel, and they're very expressive, and they convey emotions very effectively. And lastly, I also stated that the color palette is very interesting, and it knows when to contrast one scene from another. Even in this issue, when you go from the Starlight Beacon Station, you go to the scene that takes place 5 years before, and you go to the underground tunnels of the Sedri Minor, all of those scenes have individuality to them thanks to the color palette. Now let's talk about the story. The first 3 issues of this comic book series felt like the setup to me. They were introducing the setting, location, setting up the conflict, and introducing us with the characters, but I was looking for that emotional payoff where you start feeling, really getting into it and get emotionally involved with the story. And it happens here in this issue number 4. And I'd like to begin with discussing the first scene, which is a flashback of 6 years from before. We've already learned who Keith Trennis and Master Skier are and what they are supposed to be to one another, but it's really here in this scene where you begin to understand their deeper relationship. And it's narrated from the Padawan's first-person perspective, how she sees Master Skier as her mentor and a father figure and the solid rock, in this like big and scary galaxy. And I felt it was a really interesting and effective anchor, which makes the emotional resonance of this issue flow throughout, thanks to that one scene. Moving along. I want to focus your attention on Master Skier. I felt that he was the most effective character in this particular issue, and I really loved the visual and narrative device they used with his arm. It's fully grown now, this vegetation Drengir arm, and it represents to me the light versus darkness path that the Jedi always constantly have to tread. He's presented with the option here. Does he want to fully succumb to these spores and their control, or does he want to help out his friends and disregard this new power that he got? This was beautiful, and it really felt like the old school Dark Horse comic book era, where the Star Wars is focusing more on the emotional and the narrative component and not just action and the visual eye candy. Here trends also comes through in this issue. The very effective setup they had in the beginning, the relationship fleshed out between her and her master, comes through towards the center of the story, where she tries to appeal to Master Skier's senses, and you believe that because of the past that they share, and now she's the only one out of the entire group. Not even the mighty Avar Kriss can reach out to him. It's his student, and it's very human emotion that reaches out to him and helps him overcome the spores. I loved it. And the last thing I want to talk about that really impressed me and captured my imagination was actually the last panel in this issue, the Hutt Cartel. This crazy looking Gamorreans riding on top of Rancars with this mechanized hut in the center is just pure greatness. It brings back the memories of reading the Star Wars comic books in the early 2000s and late 90s, and it's just all insane looking, and it makes me wonder where they're going to take it next. We already have experienced a hint of Sith and dark side connection to the Drengir early in the chapter, which I suspected all along, and how it's all going to tie into the Nihil faction as well. Plus now you have the Hutt Cartel on top of it. Very cool stuff. A few tiny things that I really didn't care for in this issue are the Starlight Beacon attack. I mean, I saw it from a mile away that the Hutt's dead corpse is going to serve as a Pandora's box, and more Drengir plant life is going to just jump out of him and attack the station. I hope they build it up in the next issue and really something crazy happens there and the entire station is under some kind of threat. And come back to the two twin brothers. The Marvel official Facebook group announced that, they're transgender, non-binary characters in Star Wars. The internet went up in a roar. Everybody got crazy about it. All I care about is their stories. And for me, representation is best served when it's spoken through the characters that have powerful stories and they're meaningful and they participate along with the other cast. I didn't see any of them here. And my question is, if you're going to announce characters in such a sweeping way, what they represent and what they stand for in LGBT community, please bring them more to the forefront. Because I was sort of engaged with their abilities and powers, how they share this mind meld, and one can warn the other what's happening across the galaxy. So please continue that storyline and flesh them out more. They were kind of left in the shadow in this issue, and it left me a little bit disappointed. And now to score this issue, I give it a solid 4 out of 4. Not because it was perfect, it wasn't. There were a couple of things that I didn't like about it, like the two twin characters which were cast out and left out in this issue. But what really spoke to me was the emotional component, especially the intro scene that brought the entire 4 issues thus far and really made me involved with the characters. I loved it. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching my videos and supporting my channel. If you enjoyed this review, you can find the link to this particular issue where you can purchase it from Amazon in the link below. I appreciate your time. Please support me. Hit that like and bell button. I'll see you next time, and may the Force be with you.